everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Wellness Wednesdays with Stephanie podcast. My name is Stephanie Bucklin. I'm your host, and I will be interviewing Katherine Myles today. Katherine, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me, Stephanie. I'm really excited to be here. How are
Yes,
you?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited to be interviewing a soul sister. So this is awesome. So our conversation is going to be all about astrology today, which I am super, super excited about. I actually have not interviewed anybody about astrology yet, so this is my first one. So I'd love for you to give our audience a little experience about you. Who are you? What kind of magic are you making in the world? What are you doing? And business and personal.
Okay. So it's a long list, so I'm like gonna go as I go, if that makes sense. So I'm an astrologer. I have an astrology school. I am also a social justice nonprofit co-founder of the Oklahoma Center for Racial Equity and Justice. My background is in strategic communications, so I have experience as a creative strategist, and that kind of takes a part in a little bit of everything that I do. I'm also a dancer, formerly a ballet and dance fitness instructor. Um, and I'm like, no, I think that's everything. And I always hit that spot. I think that's everything. But I'm also a dream weaver, a light worker, a healer, spiritualist. Um, you know, love and light is my soul. So I just like to shine light and connect with other people and just play my part in like raising the collective vibe, you know?
Most definitely. Yep, me too. Absolutely. So you mentioned that it's been quite a journey. I'd love to share a little bit of that journey with our audience. So where do we start?
I would love to share my journey. So, we live in Phoenix, Arizona. I live in Phoenix, Arizona, but I am originally from Oklahoma City, born and raised. And I went to college out there at Oklahoma State, where I studied strategic communications. I also have a minor in Spanish from OSU. And uh, growing up in Oklahoma, I always knew I was like meant for bigger, better, greater things in terms of expanding my horizons, like not staying in one place my whole life, that type of thing. So, around the time when I was 20 is when I started thinking, like, okay, like, where do I want to be next? What do I want to do next? Like, something that like a piece of advice my dad gave me when I was trying to work this out was like, well, don't focus on like what you want to do, think about where you want to do it. And then the what will happen naturally once you get there, that type of thing. So at that point, I had took the map of the country of the United States, and I drew a line horizontally bordering the top of Oklahoma because I'm not a cold person. I don't like the cold. So I'm like, nowhere north of here. A lot of my family lives to like the east of Oklahoma. So I had grown up traveling and visiting them when I was growing up. So I felt very like familiar and like knew what to expect in that type of like climate and environment and stuff. So I was like, okay, let's look at the West. For me, New Mexico is too close. And then that kind of left like with that Southwest region. So Nevada, Utah, Arizona, California. And then I narrowed it down to like California and Arizona. And I was like, I don't think I want to make the big jump from Oklahoma to California. If I want to, I can make it out there. So let's start with Arizona. That always kind of gave me just like a good energy or like lots of like curiosity or like there's something here for you there. So I was like, okay, like that's where I want to go. And I knew one friend there, so it kind of took some time to make it out here. But there's some stuff in the middle, but obviously here we are now. Before I made it here, I was very much raised in a household where it's like, you go to college, you get a degree, you get a good job, you make a career, you make money, you're successful, you know. So that's kind of what I had in mind when I went to school and chose my degree path. My first job ever was On the Border. I was a host. And so I would like clean the menus every day. And I was like, I wonder whose job it is to like design these menu inserts. Cause like they would change every season and stuff. I'm like, they're so fun. They're so colorful, but they're all very clear with a lot of information. And I was very drawn to that. Like my brain, my Virgo moon, I didn't know I had a Virgo moon at the time, but was very like turned on by just the presentation of all of that. So when I went to school, I was like, I want to be the person who designs the On the Border menu inserts. And they're like, okay. So that would be, a path in graphic design, or you could do strategic communications, which is like all encompassing, marketing, advertising, public relations, and it includes graphic design. So, take your pick. So like, let's do all of it. Let's learn it all. So that was kind of my like foundation. I knew since I was very young that I wanted to be my own boss, to be an entrepreneur, to start my own business. That was always something that was really attractive to me. I think because I have a problem with authority, like I don't like being told what to do. And I just had a lot of negative experiences with people in power telling me the business, and I would just kind of just automatically reject it. And I'm like, you don't know everything and you don't know me. So I'm going to make my own decisions. And that's kind of what also motivated me through school and everything. So along the way, astrology had come in at that point, but it was a very just like undertone. I was about 18 and a senior in college, and I would spend a lot of my time online on tumblr.com. And so, the people I would follow would share stuff about the zodiac and the different sun signs and everything. And so I was just naturally curious about it. I'm like, okay, like what is the zodiac? Like, what is my sun sign? So then I found out that I'm a Scorpio, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's cool. What is that? And I would read about it, and I was blown away because it was like me to a T. And I was like, hang on. I thought I was the only one out here who was like very to myself, like, a little bit secretive. I don't give my whole personality away. Maybe like a touch of darkness, but also like the positive qualities of like being very loyal and devoted to commitment, and just a very caring person, because Scorpio is a water sign. So we're definitely always in our feels. We're very emotional. So I felt so understood, like it felt like the first time in my life where I was like reading about myself, and like my experience was being reflected back to me. So that automatically really hooked me. At that time, I didn't know that it was going to lead to where I am now, but I did have that intuitive, like, oh my gosh, like I can learn about myself and I can teach other people about themselves, and we can like introduce this new way of being and connecting and understanding personality and all of that. Because this was before I knew the scope of what you can do with astrology in terms of like making it, allow it, like taking the opportunity for it to work for you for business and relationships and all types of stuff, which we can totally get into later. But yeah, I didn't know about all of that stuff. I was just kind of thinking about like who we are as people, and like a personality thing is what really kind of interested me. And like side note, even from like first grade, I was very interested in like the other classmates and like when their birthdays were. I was kind of already just noticing like we all are very different, and but the people who are born close to each other kind of have that same energy, And as like a 6-7-year-old, I was like, that's as far as I went with it. But I remember it going, another 10 years back to just kind of noticing that stuff. Anyway, so I remember like, oh my gosh, I can do this, and like getting really excited. But then immediately like my inner critic came in and was like, no, you're going to college, you're getting a degree. Nobody, like, who is gonna, believe in astrology and listen to you, like that, just very limiting. It cut in and I listened to it. And so that was like a huge side quest, went to school, all of that. So it wasn't until my senior year of college, I was almost done. I had one more semester, 6 hours left. I found myself in like a really rough spot in my life. I was in an abusive, toxic relationship. I really found out who my friends weren't, basically. And at the time, it was pretty much everyone in my close circle who I had poured a lot of energy into. And I think was expecting a lot of reciprocation in that. But I think when I hit this really tough spot, I was really finding out who my friends were. And, I was getting a lot of actually like negative messages and stuff when I had realized like this relationship is toxic, abusive, unhealthy. Like I need to get out of this, and making that decision. This was my first like serious relationship at the time. So all I had really grown up on was like the chick flicks, rom-coms, like, Prince Charming, happily ever after, like lovey-dovey fairy tale shit,
Right.
And so when I was faced with like the real deal, like I was really not prepared for the emotions that I would experience, the trauma that I had experienced, and the support that I needed to recognize what was really happening and to overcome it in that moment. So I really didn't have like access, or knowledge or skills to really help myself. And I think that was kind of the charge that really took place in that time of my life. Like I was in therapy, so my therapists were very like aware of what was happening, but that kind of only, I feel like that really only kind of helps when you're sitting in that chair in the office, and then you're kind of sent back into your life to just deal.
Right.
So basically, at that time, like I was asking for support, I was asking for empathy, I was calling out, I was asking like, I need people to just be with me. Like in my head, I think I wanted my friends to come over and like have sleepovers and like eat ice cream and cry and all of that stuff. But like it was the beginning of the semester and everyone was like, I have shit to do, like figure it out, basically. And so I really wasn't responding well to that. It was really feeling like rejection at that point, because I'm in like a really deep dark space. I'm really calling out for help. The people who I'm meeting are not here for me. Like, what do I do? I'm so alone. I'm in despair. Like, this is terrible. And so, and for timing, this was also the beginning of 2017, the week of the Trump inauguration. So that was a very extra charging time, I think, for a lot of us. I was just kind of like fuel to my fire. I was not having it. So at that point, I'm like, well, if we're letting this into the White House and running the thing, and this is how the world is, and I told you already about how I feel about authority and stuff, I was not having any of it. So I got loud and I got angry, and I was on my social media. I was kind of just really oversharing. I think I was just causing a lot of waves because I was seeking that attention. I was trying to like call out to that support that I was really needing, that I just wasn't finding anywhere. And the louder I got, the more scary I was scaring people. They were really concerned and stuff. And it was kind of just like a series of unfortunate events. In hindsight, I now understood that like I was having a PTSD manic episode, and just response of just my central nervous system not knowing how to cope at all.
Right. Yeah.
So that honestly resulted in my family involuntarily hospitalizing me. I was dragged out of my home by police officers and strapped into an ambulance and taken against my will. And I was held in a facility for a week. And that was terrible. That was even more traumatizing than what I had already experienced.
Right.
It was like, okay, I'm here and now you're doing this. That's just making it way, 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 way worse. So this is where the happy ending begins. While I was there, I didn't have access to my contacts, my own clothing. I was very like isolated in this facility. And so the only thing that I found while I was there was the daily newspaper and the horoscope section of the newspaper. Because at this time, I was very like, I'm a Scorpio, I identify. So very like sun sign astrology. I hadn't really known about the rest of the chart and our houses and anything. It was just, I'm a Scorpio, you're whatever,
Right.
So I found like these small excerpts every single day that at least I could connect to and focus my energy on and kind of uplift me so that it's not all negative, not everything is lost, like all of that. And I also used it while I was there to, connect to other people on the floor, and just saying like, do you want to hear your horoscope for the day? And some would say yes, and we would talk about it. Some would be like, no, thank you. And that would be fine too. But that's really something that I found in there that I was able to take out with me. And from there, I actually developed my own astrology practice. And that's when I started to like do my deep dives of learning about all of the different, like where my planets were, what my houses were, and also learning like the sun signs of the people who were around me at that time. So I was like, you're not really getting 365 days of Katherine anymore. We're going to reserve Pisces season for you. When it's your birthday, you'll hear from me and I'll check in. When it's your time of the year, you'll get attention from me. But the 365 day energy just needs to be returned to me at this point, because I think I had run myself so dry and thin at that point that I had forgotten, or I hadn't even learned at that point how important it is to care for yourself and love on yourself and all of that stuff. I was very young. And like I said, there weren't any resources available to me at that time.
Wow.
So that was kind of my like dip, and kind of like by like a little bit of my, well, that was like the end of my, like college. So I went back to school. The last few months were like so depressing for me because I felt like I had nobody after everything that had happened. And I was like, well, I'm going to do what I came here to do. I'm going to get my degree and I'm going to figure out how I'm going to move out of here and go to Arizona. So, that's kind of the journey that like behind the scenes of really what is made up of what I do now. I do really like to share that story with people who start to work with me so that they understand the importance of why I use it. So I want to say like religiously, but so diligently. And from there, it was just like a personal tool to connect to my spirit, to connect to myself, to connect to my purpose and like self-actualize. It wasn't really in my head at that time to like make a business from it. But astrology is definitely my go-to tool for, spiritual growth, development, healing, that type of stuff. And, then I went back to like, let me get my degree, let me start my business, all of that. It didn't go from one step to another. I think every entrepreneur's journey is different.
Oh yeah. It's never a linear process.
It's never linear. It's like this, it's like, it's a dance. It's a dance. But I did, I had my first project with my degree path. I worked with my dad who ran for attorney general in Oklahoma in 2018. So I was his digital outreach director, which helped me save so that I could relocate out here to Phoenix. And then I had one friend out here. I reached out to her. Hey, I want to come visit, make sure that this is my destination. As soon as I got here, I was like, this is it. Now I just have to figure out where I'm going to live, so I planned another trip out. And so by August of 2019, I was able to just pack all of my stuff, get my dog, and drive. I was going to say 14 hours, but I think the trip with the U-Haul was like 22 hours, but it's about 1,000 miles from here to Oklahoma City, which I like because it's like a straight shot from I-40 to Flagstaff. It was like all the way here and then down. So it was great. And that was 2019. I had a little bit of time in 2019 to establish myself with my StratCom. I went to like some networking events, like 1 Million Cups. I connected with a gold community coach out here, and I offered her my first communications audit, which is something that I learned to build at school that I wanted to offer to small businesses and companies that just want to do good in the world. This is before I had really thought about like my own mission and vision and everything, but just kind of what I had in my heart, you know. And then at that point, I had also started teaching dance, which was one of my first jobs out here. And then the pandemic started in 2020. So that's another thing that like hit us all very differently. But for me, I had the benefit of starting my business that summer in July of 2020 as a creative strategist. And I started reaching out to other coaches who I had met and offering them social media management, consulting and strategy for their marketing efforts. And I'm trying to think what else, because this is kind of when it really all got started, so I'm getting a little bit excited. I had joined a creative collective called A Creative Company. Basically kind of how I started was just reaching out to people in my network and saying, hey, I want to get started with this. Like, you know, do you have any advice or any tips you can offer? And then that's just planting one seed and, you know, letting it sprout from there. So in Creative Company, the co was another really is another really big supporter of mine and my entrepreneur journey. And it's cool because it's a collective and it's an agency, so you can come in as a freelancer and work on projects, but it's also a community, so you can connect with other creatives and freelancers. So it's like you're running your own business, but you have a community of people who are doing it too, so you don't feel like you're doing it by yourself. So really starting to bring in the astrology now. Bear with me. So we did The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron in the co, and that's a 12-week course where we connect to our creative spirit. And for me, I was expecting to like get back into drawing, take my dancing a little bit more seriously, but like add a more like choreography component. Pick up my drumsticks. I have a whole drum set in here that I don't play, but that's a goal of mine. So that's what I was expecting from The Artist's Way, but really what had happened was I started connecting to my astrology practice because that had been growing and developing like privately over time. I started doing my own moon rituals in the summer of 2020 as well, in terms of working with the lunar pulse and the rhythm, setting intentions with the new moon, celebrating and releasing with the full, and then connecting to the phases in between as well. So those moon rituals really started showing up for me during The Artist's Way. And so every time we would have a check-in, I would be like, yeah, but what about these stars up here? Like, did you guys know about this retrograde? Like, this is in this sign. Like, where is that in you? You know, and I was kind of hearing myself, like, I'm kind of feeling, I sound like a nut right now. Like, nobody's asking, but I'm here to share, you know? So that's really when it started to come alive for me. Was like by the end of 2020 and the beginning of 2021. At this point, which is really fun because this is eventually how we became connected, I was invited to join the Mandala movement, which is a spiritual group where we come together to support each other's dreams and connect to the elements. And so, you know, I'm very about that. There's an elemental component to astrology. So I'm like, how can I apply it here? You know, so that was my yes. And then from there, just magic really started to unfold for me. This is when I reconnected with my co-founder, Derrick Brown from OSU. And he reached out to me on LinkedIn and he said, hey, I have this project that I want to get started. Do you want to meet and share so I can share about this idea. And so that's when he introduced the Oklahoma Center for Racial Equity and Justice, a research and resource facility dedicated to creating pipelines of success and eliminating imbalance for historically marginalized communities. And that was an automatic yes for me, because we do have similar backgrounds growing up as biracial people in Oklahoma, and not really having the experience or the space to be ourselves. I think that we had to kind of learn how to code switch and shape shift and, like tailor to our white side, or learn to embrace our Black culture, but there really wasn't a lot of space there to do it on our own. So now that we're like grown people, we're like, let's create this space for ourselves and for other people. So
Nice.
that started in March 2021, and we've been working diligently. We're getting ready to launch next year in the spring.
Woo!
Yes. And so I was kind of like bringing the astrology conversation to like my other groups and friends and stuff, until somebody in 2021 was like, you don't get it through a conversation without bringing this up. Like, you should teach classes. And I thought about it for a second, and I was like, yeah, I can. Like, I know enough. Like, I can share. Like, let's do that. And so that's when that idea really started to sprout for me. I started with a autumn equinox celebration event, which is like an astrology 101 workshop, I guess you could say, where I just kind of share like the breakdown, the ins and outs, so where it's like, it's not all confusing, it's not all random, like it is very systemized, there is an order to it. You just need to understand the pieces that go, and then how to actually apply it. So that's really what my my solstice and equinox event is all about. And then from there, I did a trial round from there to see, like, would people want to take regular classes? I built it based off of what the feedback I was getting was, so that by the winter of 2021, I had my first paid event, and then I had my first offering, which was the winter moon series. Basically, people signed up for it. We finished the whole season, which was basically taking us through, the last 3 signs of the zodiac: Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces, meeting for the new moon and the full moon, talking about what energies are present and how we can connect that to our charts and our lives. And from there, I was like, you know what? The astrological new year is actually it's at the spring equinox. So it's in like the end of March, beginning of April, not at the beginning of January, like how our Gregorian calendar is. So I was like, you know what? If I really want to offer this, let's take ourselves through the entire zodiac, So at that point in 2022, in the spring, is when I launched my 12-month program, which did just that. It took us through the entire 12 cycles, signs of the zodiac, meeting bi-weekly new moon and full moon. And we finished that whole 12-month program this year in the spring, where I actually evolved it into the astrology school. So I moved our members up into our intermediate level. I added in a monthly study group for them, and a seasonal one-on-one as well. I introduced an advanced group because I had come in contact with a few astrologers in my field who wanted a space to meet other astrologers and connect in that way, where it's like, we have the information, we just want to talk about it. So we have a group text for them. And yeah, like that's what we're doing now with the astrology. And then it wasn't until, honestly, pretty recently, this summer, a little bit previously, I had decided to release my clients and focus more on the astrology school, because it's what I'm most passionate about, and I wasn't really seeing the results that I wanted to provide with the clients. So it just made me want to just shift that energy. And then I think everything else kind of took care of itself when we had this Mercury retrograde in Virgo during like September of this year, because my dance program was canceled. The clients that I did have flaked. And then there was something else too. There was another project that I was involved in the past 2 years, and I just completely missed the deadline to apply. So it's like, well, you're not doing any of this going into the fall, Katherine, young lady. So what are we going to do now? And I'm so grateful for like all of my support teams and everybody, because I'm like, I don't know. But everyone was very just gracious and encouraging and saying, you know, a lot of space was cleared for a lot of greatness to come in. So I really doubled down at that point, and decided to like hit the streets with this astrology thing and started to do in-person events. So I got to be a vendor. My first vending was at your event in October, and I was at First Friday in Phoenix. I now teach a monthly solar sign sync workshop at Encanto Forest, where we talk about the sun's energy and how that shows up in our chart as it moves through each sign. I like to go to Laguna Cava Bar downtown in Phoenix. Like that's always just been one of my hangout spots, where another one of my friends and I like to, plot and scheme. We are actually the Galaxy Girls together. She's becoming an interior designer, and she's a Taurus, so very earthy. And then me with my Scorpio and my astrology and stuff. We're like a really great pair. So we were just there having our meeting, and all of a sudden she like looks to the side, and there's this group setting up there, and she's like, they're speaking the language. And I'm like, what? She's like, they're talking about astrology. And I'm like, what? And then they like set up a whole panel. They have the speaker up with a microphone, and okay, we're gonna get started with this Astro Chats. We're here to talk about astrology, and I'm freaking out.
Oh wow.
Yes, because everything that they shared at this panel, I had shared the day before in my class. I was like, they're saying everything that I said yesterday. Like, is this real? Like, is this real? So naturally, I went up afterwards. I introduced myself to the organizer, and they invited me to be on panel. So now I'm a weekly panelist with Astro Chats. We do the Astro Chats in the Laguna downtown in Phoenix, but also in Sedona. So I actually just came back from that last night. And yeah, so I'm just out here full force astrologizing, and I had no idea that I would be out here doing it, but that's really what's happening. And
That's exciting.
A long journey, but here we are.
Yeah. So I'd love to talk a little bit more about your school and what you have as offerings through the school. And yeah, I hear that you're looking for a name for this school.
Yes, actually, that is the funny thing. There is not a name for the school yet, because it kind of evolved into this big thing. The name did not rise with it, basically. So basically, the names that we do have. So if you come to the class itself, it's the Astro Portal. Enter the Astro Portal. That's our new moon or full moon class, or our seasonal event. So we do have our upcoming winter solstice event. We're doing it a week early, December 14th this year. This is actually the first time that I'm doing it like this. We're offering a how to read your birth chart. So it's going to be different from our regular Astro 101 breakdown. There's definitely going to still be those components for everyone to kind of understand and digest, but it's going to be more focused on what you actually do to go about looking up your chart and then understanding what it says when you're looking at it, not like, what are these symbols? What are these planets? This doesn't make any sense. Because I think at that point, that can be a turn off for people, and they just set it down. They're like, never mind, I'll stick to CoStar or whatever, which I'll say like, get off CoStar, work with an astrologer. But anyway, create your own practice. I'm here, like my school is really to help people develop their own practice, like the way that I had done for myself. I want everyone to be able to use these tools and learn how they can apply them to support themselves, no matter what they're going through. You know, you don't have to be in a really dark spot. But it's always a really great tool, no matter really what stage you're in. Especially if you're in a great stage, like it's a great reflector and affirmer that, you know, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, because that's what
Yeah.
astrology does, you know.
Yeah.
My school, so the names that I do have, so the membership itself is Living in Sync with the Signs,
Okay.
which I still love, which that's kind of like a candidate for the name of the school itself. But so Astro Portal, Living in Sync with the Signs, we have a group chat called Cosmic Combos, and the advanced chat is Astro Chats, which is hilarious because that's what the panel that I'm on now is called too. Other names, so I love this. I'm gonna find a way to use it, but Astrology.
That's cute.
Astrology, Gravitate, which I love because it just gives that like come hither or get into this orbit, sync up, you know, energy, gravitate. Galactic Academy is a top runner as well.
That's a cool name.
Thank you. I've gotten a lot of good feedback, positive feedback from Galactic Academy, because it's in the name, you know, and that's kind of what I want, is for it to make sense. And then the one that I just thought of recently, like, I really like Galactic Academy, but what about Star Goddess Studios?
Cool.
I don't know.
Well, maybe we can put it out to our listeners and have them vote. That would be cool.
Yes.
So just put your comments. Let us know which one you like the best.
Please. Yes, we are running a poll. I am thinking about doing a contest or something. If you have other names that you're like, oh, name it this, like, I'm definitely open to submissions. But yeah, I think Astro Portal, Living in Sync with the Signs, Gravitate, Astrology, Galactic Academy, and then Star Goddess Studio. So
wow.
the name is finding us. I think that's really what's on its way with that. But,
definitely. So I'm curious, how can you use astrology in business?
That's a really great question. So you have to know where to look. You have to be familiar with your placement. So to pull your chart, it's really important to have your time of birth, your date of birth, and your location. The time of birth is really important because that sets up our rising and our house system, where there's a lot of information, and that changes every 2 hours. So that's why the accuracy is so important.
Okay.
But for working with astrology in business, there are definitely lots of places that you can look. I would say you can look at your second house, because that starts with your relationship to wealth and worth. I like it because it starts within, you know, what is my relationship? Like, how do I value myself? What am I worth? And then based on that relationship to yourself, you have that external reflection and representation in terms of how you're actually able to accumulate wealth into your life. So it's really important to have a healthy relationship with that, with yourself, to, you know, make money and be successful, or whatever your goals are in business, you know. Then I would look at your sixth house, because it really describes your work ethic, you know, how you actually go about completing tasks. You know, it's like your day-to-day, your habits, your lifestyle, your routine. So, I mean, this could go for anyone who is an entrepreneur, but it could be anyone who has, like, you know, a 9 to 5 or any type of work. It's like, it's really important to understand what, like, how you best work and operate, and what environment you would thrive best in, based on how you naturally like to perform, you know?
Okay.
The next thing that I would look at is your 10th house, which is your legacy house. I think traditionally the 10th house is focused on like professional status, career, public persona, that type of stuff. But I like to think about it as your legacy, because we're not always defined by what we do for work. And I think we're actually evolving out of that notion. You know, your legacy could be because you're a good, kind, caring person. You know, it could have anything to do with what you do for work, but the 10th house will definitely indicate what type of legacy you're here to lead. And you absolutely can connect that to that professional persona.
Cool.
The 10th house is also your midheaven. So that's like the 12 o'clock point in your chart. So that's kind of like where you really do shine and what you really want to kind of come into doing. What else I would look at for like planets? I definitely think like the big three, sun, moon, and rising, to kind of just understand like who you are and what you do is helpful to kind of understand what kind of environment you would fit in, or what kind of environment you would want to create for yourself. But then I would say Venus, because that's all about what you love. You know, if you want to do what you love in terms of like what you do for work and you want to love it, look at your Venus, because that'll tell you what you love, your values, your value system, your preferences, that type of stuff. And then I would say looking at, I'm like thinking of it and I'm thinking about more. Your Saturn. Saturn is a very it's a very like dense energy to work with. I'm personally in my Saturn return, which means Saturn has returned to the sign it was in when I was born 29 years ago. So that's a big trip. But it's kind of like a rite of passage for everyone once you get to this stage in your life. But Saturn is really about your limitations, your boundaries, your relationship to authority, but also your purpose. You know, Saturn really challenges you to understand your limitations and in ways, you know, overcome them so that you can achieve your purpose. And then the last thing that I'll say too, and I'm sure, you know, if any of my astrologer friends watch this, like, well, you didn't say this, you didn't say this, like, please chime in, leave the comments and all of that. But also your Jupiter, you know, your Jupiter is the biggest planet in our solar system. It is our source of abundance and expansion and growth. So wherever you have Jupiter in your chart, you definitely have a lot of opportunities to really like tap into, or like capitalize on, you know, or really just get in there and just see how that really grows and booms for you, you know. So that's where I would start.
Okay.
There's a
So
lot of things to go for that.
I have another question. When I was in California, I started a wellness center, and I started on, it was like June 19th of 2014. We were in the middle of a Mercury retrograde. And I didn't know that because I knew nothing about astrology at this point, but someone did my chart on my business. So they actually pulled a chart for my business based on the time that I started the business, the day that I started the business. And I thought that was super interesting, because it wasn't until they did a chart for my business and they were like, well, no wonder you had such a challenge. I started the business and within 48 hours lost both of my business partners. Like it blew me away. Like, how could this happen? It was because we were in retrograde and contracts were not supposed to be signed during those times. So I learned a little bit about astrology then, and I've been very interested as well how they relate to my relationships, how astrology relates to my relationships, because I recognized that I tend to be attracted to Geminis. I tend to have this like ridiculous attraction, and I don't get it. Like, what is it about Geminis that I absolutely just can't give up? So I don't know, like, what can you tell me about relationships and astrology?
Very interesting. Well, first, I definitely want to touch on what you said about starting your business during retrograde. What a nightmare. Like, that's, I'm so sorry. Like, that, and it's so wild how it's like it's like it is what it is. Like, oh well, we looked and it was, you know. And so I just want to kind of demystify that a little bit, since we are actually currently, I think by the time this post, we will be in retrograde. So today is the 28th, November 28th. On Saturday, we entered the pre-retrograde shadow. And for me with retrograde, I like to tell everyone block 7 weeks out in your calendar. 2 weeks for the pre-shadow, 3 weeks for the retrograde itself, and then 2 weeks after for the post-shadow. Because sometimes the shadow hits harder than the retrograde itself. It kind of depends on where it is and where it goes through your chart and everything. But the reason why, we say don't sign contracts and stuff like that is because, Mercury is the planet of communication, of technology, transportation. It rules like our mental processes, our thoughts, our ideas, how we express, how we communicate. So that, is very natural in like business dealings and stuff like that. All of that is present, So when we're in this retrograde phase, and I'll also explain, what a retrograde is. It's an optical illusion, but what it seems like is the planet actually stops on its orbit and starts spinning backwards. And that's just kind of in relationship to where we are on Earth in our path with the other planets and theirs. So that's what a retrograde is. But during those times, it's really more of a time to reflect and review and revisit and tie up loose ends, kind of get to things that you haven't gotten already so that you're not kind of constantly like letting things pile up. It's kind of like get to the pile. And honestly, my kind of word or theme for this current retrograde is return. I think it's a really important time to just return to self and what makes you feel at home and really nurturing that energy so that when we go out of this phase, we'll feel restored so that we can start making those steps forward. It's not really a time to begin new projects or start a business, sign the contract, because we'll kind of be met with minor or major, depending on how aligned and destined it is to be, right? Inconveniences, which can lead to frustrations, and then we just get really worked up and stuff. And Mercury is that like trickster energy. So it's just pointing its finger and laughing at us down here, like, look at them getting so upset, like it'll be fun in a couple of weeks, like whatever, whatever.
Yep.
Whatever. So that's what I want to share about that. And then in terms of relationships, what you can do, I would revisit Venus again, because again, that's like love, life, energy, values, your comfort level, and again, your preferences. But then I would also look at your 5th house, which is like the fun house. It's like, the things that you like to do for fun, the things that you enjoy, pleasure. The 5th house also rules children as well. But stuff that really like lights you up and livens you up. That's like the 5th house energy. 5th house, like I said, it's like the fun house. And then the 7th house is the house of partnerships. So that would kind of maybe indicate like if you have Gemini and Venus or in your 5th house or your 7th house, that would probably naturally draw you to them. I would definitely say like look in your chart and see where Gemini is so that we can know for sure what that would be, because it could be somewhere else, like like if you had your Lilith there or your Chiron or something, it could be more about I need to heal from this energy and I'm getting this opportunity, and they're kind of bringing this energy up for me to kind of recognize and process and do what I need to do with that. I think some other houses you could look at would be like your 3rd house or your 11th house if it's more like friendships or just people in your general vicinity. But if it is more like love life energy, I would say Venus, 5th house, and 7th house for looking for that Gemini in your chart.
Okay.
Which I'm happy to do too. If we have time, I'll look at your chart and I'll tell you right here.
That's okay. Okay, so then what else? I think, is there anything else that you want to share about your school or anything that's coming up in the next couple months?
Something that I would love to share, I'm really excited about. It's great news, actually. I have been working on a new offering for astrology. If you aren't interested in like learning and like coming to class or starting your own practice, any of that, but it's more for anyone who is dealing with a major issue, problem, or challenge in their life that they're not really able to figure out or move through. So you come to me, you let me know a little bit about what's going on. We pull your chart, and we find answers and insights based on what I see in your chart, when what's going on currently. And I can offer, a little bit of a timeline for like, this is when things might light up, or this is when things, you might want to focus on this area or something like that. So we unearth it together. So I'm really excited to share that I have this Unearth It offering. And I am currently looking for private one-on-one clients. So if you really are looking for extra guidance and support from an astrological lens, or maybe just a different perspective that you haven't explored, or even you're here for astrology, but you are not the one to know it, I'm here to help. So if anyone is interested in that, I would love to connect with you for an Unearth It reading, or to talk about a private container. And then the membership itself includes the 2 bi-weekly classes, the monthly study group, the seasonal one-on-one, and oh my gosh, what else? There was something else. I have to run through it again. The classes, the monthly study group, the one-on-one, and the group chat. But you don't have to be a member to come to class. So if you're interested in like, oh, it's my sign, it's my season, it's Sagittarius, like what's going on with this new moon in Sagittarius, I do have drop-in classes available. So you just sign up, drop in, take what you need and all of that, because it's just an ongoing thing that we have. And I will be at Tempe Night Market on December 9th, but by the time this airs, that will have been in the past. So anything in the next couple months, I think just really, I would love everyone to just follow me on my Instagram at K as in knife, KASINKNIFE on Instagram. My link is in my bio for all of these different offerings, to sign up for the classes, to do an Unearth It, and to sign up for the How to Read Your Birth Chart event, which was on the 14th, which will be after when we air, but the replay will be available. So if you are interested, you will be able to obtain that. But yeah, I think really just connecting with me on there, because that's where I have most of my updates. I'm planning to do more lives and sharing a little bit more about what we've been doing and the journey itself, what astrology can do for you, because I am really looking forward to what the next cycle of the school will be, because we're going to be surveying our members and seeing, what they really are liking from it, what they want to include for the next go around, all of that. I was actually talking to somebody last night talking about like, oh, is there like a graduation ceremony? Do they get a certificate? I'm like, yes, they can. And she was like, is there like a belt system, like for karate, do you have like a green belt, yellow belt, all of that? And I'm like, we don't, but we can make one. And we decided like it'll be based on your orbits, like how many orbits you've done. So
That's cute.
yeah, thank you. So we have a lot of stuff going that is coming. So I am really excited to see what will be here by the time we close up this current astrological year and start the next one. We have just about 4 more signs left in the current zodiac, and then we start all over again. So I'm excited to be here and share about all this fun stuff that is available to us always.
Very, very cool. Absolutely. So are you planning another spring equinox New Year program somewhere in March?
Yes, absolutely. There will definitely be a spring event. I haven't decided if it'll be an Astro 101 or a How to Read Your Birth Chart again. We'll probably just base it off of how this first one goes. But there will definitely be an event to look forward to. And there will definitely be open enrollment for the school. So there are the different beginning, intermediate, advanced levels. So it meets you where you are. You arrive when you're ready. And it's here to help you illuminate your class.
Beautiful. I love it. Well, any final thoughts, inspiration that you want to share with the audience?
Final thoughts and inspiration. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you, Stephanie, for having me. It's been really nice to just share a little bit about what I have going on. So I really appreciate this space that you've given me to share that. Thank you. Especially to be part of your wellness series too, because we need all the tools we can get right now.
Yes.
Like there's so much going on, and I think the message is really to understand what your needs are, and figure out ways to meet those needs. And that can be from introducing an astrology practice to breath work, yoga, connecting with community, eating healthy to nourish your body, staying hydrated, natural light, fresh air, being in nature, the list goes on and on and on. So I'm really happy to be a part of this series where you're meeting with other people who definitely advocate for wellness and just being well. So yeah, it's really special to be a part of it, and keep doing this, because this is what the world needs, is to understand that like we are all human, and we all need to be human, and so kind of just connecting back to those natural ways of being is definitely something that is super important to me in my journey and my path. So I'm really happy to share that with you and with your viewers and listeners, and would love to connect with everybody here, who this resonates with, because we are all together, and this is a collective movement for change and growth and healing. So thank you again.
Awesome. Okay, thank you, Katherine. Awesome. Okay, and now you mentioned your Instagram. Is there any other way that people can reach you?
Yes, I think the Instagram would probably be the primary, because that's where I'm the most active and responsive. You can always send me a DM there, and my link tree is in my bio to connect with all of that other stuff. I can offer my email address. It is kmyles21@yahoo.com. I will be honest, it's not my primary form of communication, but if you want to connect directly with me, that is a way to do it. And then just kind of following along on Instagram. I have not built out a website yet. I will say it's kind of funny, with my whole background in strategic communications, I spent a lot of energy investing my skills and work to, my clients and other businesses and stuff, so that, now I'm returning to myself. It's like, it's a lot of work. So it's, investing in myself. So we're, solopreneur, and, when there is a business to share, a website to share, you will have it, but it is a link tree. So I'll share the link tree with you to share with your guests, and that's on my Instagram as well. So it's all in one place.
Excellent. Awesome. Well, thank you again so much, Katherine. This has been such a delight chatting with you today. I love you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful, blessed holiday.
Thank you. I love you too. And this was so great. So much fun. I really appreciate this opportunity and experience. So I wish you the same, and happy retrograde. I would say just take it easy, return to yourself, and do what you need to do to just keep it going and shining,
Thanks.
Thank you.